little bunny, hop, hop, hop. Hop, little bunny, hop, hop, hop.
Oh, sorry, we're doing the podcast, not singing to our children the same nursery rhyme for the 57th time in a day.
Right.
Oh,
Look, we're recording.
We're recording. Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Teach, Sleep, Repeat. My name is Hop.
My name is Little Bunny.
Oh my gosh, it's infiltrated our minds.
It is Easter. Come on.
I know.
It is Easter.
It's like the only time in the year where it's now acceptable to sing that song, because I've been singing that about you for about 6 months.
Yeah.
Rory starts bouncing before it's even, but nothing's on. And he'll just start looking at me like bouncing. I was like, do you want Hop Little Bunny to play? And he'll be like, yes.
Oh.
So I put it on Spotify and we go, Hop Little Bunny, hop, hop, hop. And then the buddies sleep.
Yeah.
And he goes on the floor.
How
and puts his head down.
How many times do you listen to it before you start crying? Like, what's your sort of cutoff? Because mine's about 3.
I think initially it was about 3, and then I got over it because I got to like 57, and I was like, I'm just a robot now.
No, it's your favourite.
I'm just a robot. It reminds me of that Severance.
Yeah. Yes.
That show.
Oh my god, it's so good.
It's so good. Like, I know we're not. I know we're a teaching podcast, but let's just digress for a second, because if you haven't watched Severance, it's probably my favourite show since early Game of Thrones.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah, genuinely.
I
love the concept.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, so
I really did enjoy it.
Should we explain the concept very quickly for anyone who hasn't watched it? The concept is Severance is like this procedure you can get.
Yeah.
And it's basically a commentary about like the corporate world and how horrendous it is. And you can choose to go to this company called Lumen and get the severance procedure, which essentially splits your brain in half. So you don't split in half. Your physical body is the same at all times, but you walk into work, get into an elevator, and as you move to what's called the severance floor, where you do your work, you flip. So your brain flips consciousness to your new consciousness you've created to do your work.
Yeah.
So the point being, you've essentially created a new being. A new soul is the whole like idea of the show. How much rights do these new people have? But the horrendous thing when you actually think about it is, from the point of view of the person on the outside, it's great because you go to work in the morning, and then from your point of view, you go in the elevator and you immediately step out of the elevator after doing your day of work. So you don't think about work.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
8 hours has just passed.
And for you, it's immediate. So you might lose some of your life, but you're at work and you hate work, so why would you not just cut your brain off? Yeah. But then on the flip side, the person you've created inside, who is still you, but a different consciousness who doesn't have any idea of what's going on, they only ever exist in work. Yeah. So they walk out the elevator to do their work, finish their day of work, go to the elevator, and immediately come back out again for the next day of work.
They don't get to sleep.
No.
They literally only exist in work mode. It's a really, really cool show. It's on Apple TV. So if you haven't watched it already, like, definitely watch it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine it for teaching?
Would you do it? Would you do it?
Well, having watched the show, I feel like I'd feel bad for my inner self.
Yeah, doing only work.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine. Oh my god! I mean, some teachers do this. Imagine defining your entire life only by teaching. Imagine like every single waking minute of your existence is in school.
Wait, what? You don't just go home, sleep, and come back?
Maybe I am severed.
Yeah, sleep is your severance. You're having a great time and you sleep.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't think I could do that.
No, not at all.
I couldn't do it. It would be hell for the inside me who doesn't get a break.
Can you imagine, like, oh my god, I just can't. You're so overstimulated. I just need to decompress, and just stepping out the door and then being back with the kids going, sir. Oh my god, I did this last night. It is last night. What's going on? I can't believe it.
Oh god, yeah, that's nasty.
It's well worth a watch though. It's one of those things where you can get a 7-day free trial to Apple TV. Get it at a point now in half term, which we're in, where you know you can binge it.
That's exactly what I did, by the way. Yeah. Did I tell you that I did actually manage to watch season 1 and 2 in the 7
That's incredible. That's like 20
in term time. That's nuts. I was staying up so late.
Wait,
like, I have to watch this.
So you did 20 hours of TV?
Yeah. Well,
in a week.
Some of them are like 30 minutes long.
Oh,
they're
yeah,
different.
true.
They're about 30 to 50 minutes.
Right, okay.
And then there's like the odd one that's like an hour.
The finale was like an hour.
Finale was like
a
feature-length film.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was so long. Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah, watch it. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely watch Severance. Anyway, other than that, all good this week.
Yeah,
everything good?
I'm a bit scarred still.
Yeah.
2.0.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, people might have not listened. I don't know. But a few weeks ago, we mentioned how Hayden has had his bathroom done. Didn't put a lock on his bathroom door. You can all wonder what might happen when a bathroom door doesn't have a lock on it. I accidentally walked in on his girlfriend on the toilet. So, okay, bye. Bye. Ran out quick.
Yeah,
had a
was
laugh
funny.
about it. That was funny.
And that was just before we recorded that podcast episode.
Yeah,
a few weeks
I remember
ago.
because I was like ghostly, like, oh gosh, what have I done? Couldn't believe it. This morning, you went to the toilet. Famously, you can take up to half an hour.
Oh,
so I was like, cool, we'll do the podcast later on, I guess.
doesn't?
I'll just sit here and wait for Aiden to finish on the toilet.
This is what they're here for, isn't it? Listeners are reveling in this.
So I heard someone footsteps on the landing and someone going downstairs. I was like, okay, that's Hayden. He's gone to get a drink or something.
He's
We're ready
done.
to do that. I'll just go and blow my nose quickly. So I went out, opened the door. There you are, sat in the toilet, bum out and everything. Just sat there having a poo. Yeah, well, I should hope so if you're going to the toilet. It'd be weird if your bum wasn't out.
Bum out suggests that like it was facing you. I don't know how you think I'm going to the toilet.
No, I could see the side of your bum.
I was like, hello.
You're so calm. And I was like, so that's 2 for 2. And your
2 for
daughter's
2.
an infant who constantly poos and gets her nappy changed.
Yep.
So I've now seen all 3 of you have a poo.
Poo in this house.
Yeah, literally.
That's an achievement, I think.
I think so. I think that's like a level of closeness that you don't really get with many people.
Yeah, that most people don't want.
No, I don't.
Most people wouldn't want that.
Most people don't even think about as a thing.
No.
What,
Well
you
done.
thought them go to the toilet? I'd never even thought about who I've seen go to the toilet. Who have you seen go to the toilet, listeners? Just think now, because I bet the only people you're close to, really, have you seen go to the toilet.
Has it ever happened at work where someone's not locked the door? Because I've had it a couple of times, not me, where I've gone into the toilet and someone else is in there. And they're like, I forgot to lock the door.
What? On the toilet?
Yeah, adults like...
No!
Yeah.
Oh my
Genuinely.
God.
Yeah, a couple of times in my career, and obviously it's mortifyingly embarrassing for that person, isn't it? And I'm just
And you walking in.
Yeah, I just feel awkward because I'm like, oh crikey, I just, walked into my toilet.
God.
Have you never
No,
done that?
never.
Oh, I feel like I thought that would be quite normal. Like people just forget to lock the door. But, yeah.
Is that why you still haven't got a lock on your bathroom door? You're like, that's quite normal.
Yeah,
That's quite normal. Come in. We'll do the podcast on the loo. Come on. Come in, guys.
Should we do that?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely
Never.
not.
Ever.
Terrible idea.
So this week, very common in the, well, I say this week, what would be last week, the last week of term before Easter is very common for a parents' evening.
Yeah.
And we had our parents' evening. How did you find it? Like, what your initial reactions? Let's talk parents' evening for a minute.
I had probably the most like straightforward positive parents evening I think I've ever had.
I think you said that last time as well.
Did I? Well, maybe I've had a few in a... I mean,
but this is this year.
Same cohort, same year. But like... I don't know if I feel like every year, like there's at least one, maybe like a slightly difficult conversation. Honestly, I had a blast. It was like, everyone was so nice. I didn't have any troubles at all. There was no conversation that made me think a bit like, oh, I've got to prepare for this. Oh, I've got to deliver some bad news. It was just fine. I had a really nice time. Yeah.
How nice is it when you can just sit there for 10 minutes and essentially big up their child and how well they've done. I see that as my role at Parents' Evening. Because to be honest with you, if I think about anything negative that I've got to say, it's so rare that the first time I'm ever going to say that is when we're at Parents' Evening sat in front of the parents. Because I think it does... I don't like using this word because there are probably some instances where it's fine, but it does feel a bit unprofessional that it would feel from the parents' point of view that you've waited 3 months to mention something that's quite important.
Yeah, I agree. Well, if I put yourself in their shoes, if I was going to Parents' Evening with River and they were like, oh yeah, she's been a nightmare all year, and they hadn't told me at any point that her behavior was bad, I would be like, oh, could you have told me that sort of any time before now, so I could maybe have like helped that?
Are you giving me a description of what's happening, or are we going to talk about how we can fix it? Because it sounds as if you're just saying she's a nightmare and hey-oh.
Yeah, and you haven't talked to me about it to try and fix it. Yeah, so I agree. And our head teacher's quite like that as well, isn't he? He always says, no surprises at Parents' Evening. If you've got something, if there's something that's unbelievably urgently negative to say, then you probably should have addressed it at some point.
And if you haven't, do it the week before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you haven't, just say beforehand, just have that semi-difficult conversation. Because the last thing you want in a timed zone where you've got 10 minutes per parent is to lay something down and the parent's like, well, let's try and sort this out then. Yeah, sure. Not now though. Bye. 10 minutes is up. Got the next person waiting. It's just not the environment for that. It's the environment for quick catch-ups, positive reinforcement, and a couple of next steps that are actionable and easy. Then it's not the environment for, oh gosh, this thing's completely unhinged. Bye.
Yeah, agree. How was your timekeeping this time?
Oh, I pride myself on Parents' Evening timekeeping. And I know I shouldn't, because it's like you can't control it sometimes and parents just won't go or something like that. But I really, really, really pride myself on, and later on in my career especially, wrapping things up and being able to sense time's coming to an end, sense a parent might not actually naturally just go and be like, oh, okay, so overall, really, really good. Like I just want them to carry on doing what they're doing and then we'll keep doing our job. Nice one.
My job share is really good at using body language. I'm always really impressed.
Just stands up, walks out.
Yeah, no, but she does that. It's so impressive. I look at her sometimes. I'm like, I know what you're doing. Like, I said, yeah, it's brilliant. So, and she'll start moving, start getting up. Like, yeah, absolutely fantastic. And just that movement of like starting to get up is just a signal to everyone subconsciously. It's like, oh, this is finishing now, and everyone starts getting up while still talking. And it's like, and then before you realize it, we're all standing up, and it's like, oh, you're leaving now. And I'm always like, oh, it's really impressive how you've used body language to do that. Do you still use a timer? Because you said in the past that you've had like a little timer.
Yeah, no, I just use the clock now because it's every 10 minutes.
Right.
So I use that clock internally where I'm like, if it's getting to 8 or 9, I'm just like, we need to wrap it up now just to keep time. And it's not that I don't want to carry on talking to the parents. It's just that you don't want to have later on in your parents' evening, someone waiting for 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's awkward, isn't it?
But we semi overran a bit, but it was when we were coming towards our break, and the last couple just overran, and it basically means at that point you get less of a break. We got like 10-minute break in our 6-hour parent evening, then we reset. So we got there, it was fine. Yeah. But yeah, in general, I mean, I love parents' evening. I always enjoy parents' evening. I think what I will say is, and I'm going to bring this up again because I think we brought this up last time. I don't know what the best way to do parents' evening is. How do you effectively talk to that many parents? As maybe when you sometimes teach English and maths to different children as well, as your class of 30 children.
Yep.
What's the best way of doing it? Do you do it in one swoop where you're there until 9, half 9 in the evening and just you get it done in one day? Do you spread it out and have later evenings that don't go quite as late, but for a few days? Do you close school for half a day and then start at like 1 o'clock and just see where that takes you? I don't know. And I just think it's one of those things where you just have to suck it up and bear it for a couple of times a year. I don't know if there's a good way of doing it.
I think it is kind of absurd, the idea that schools, like our school does this, and then our staff voted for it, so it's like whatever. But working till like 9 p.m. like that. So our parents' evening is at the end of a full school day from 3:30 until 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And luckily, fortunately for us, it's on a Thursday, and because we're job share, we're part time. We're not in the day on Thursday anyway. So for us, it's just going in for parents' evening. But I get there, my job share. She's finished a whole day of work and she's exhausted. I got there yesterday, and my team honestly were knackered. Like I looked at them all, and they were all just like, I can't fathom the idea that I've now got to do another 6 hours of like intense work to talk to parents as well on top of that whole school day. So I don't think that's the best way of doing it. In all honesty, I think there has to be a token from the school to be like, it starts at 1 o'clock.
Sure.
Okay, not every parent can get in. I get it. The whole point is most people work because they can't get in, but some can, because I've been at schools where it happens, and there's always parents there at 1 o'clock. They can do it, and then it goes on later, but maybe it finishes at 7 rather than 9. I don't know, and then it's just a few more hours back of your day. I think there's a middle ground somewhere, but you do kind of have to suck it up because it's just a challenge. But you only do it normally once a year for some schools.
Yeah.
So
and like I said, it's so rare that it's horrendous. The act of doing it.
Yeah, it's not really
it's just long.
One thing I find really awkward, and I know you have opinions on this as well, so I'd like to hear what you think, is the content in which you talk about on Parents' Evening. And I'd love to, please write into us, because I really want to know what people talk about at Parents' Evening, because I find it a bit cringy when I end up spending the majority of my time talking about very specific areas of maths and grammar and English.
She's fantastic at using the progressive tense,
but just needs to work on using subjunctive form in her writing. It's like I honestly die a little bit inside because like we have a system of like, that's stupid. We give each other notes for maths and English and things, and I'm like, oh, I just don't think that any parent, and if they do, a very small minority, actually care and want to hear about like the specific like parts of, I don't know, like elements of, they're doing great in place value, but they just need to work on fractions with different denominators more. Knowing that you as a teacher, like you're the person doing that, you're obviously going to do that at school. I find it a little bit awkward, and I always think, the parents just want to hear how well their kids are getting on, like how happy they are. Like, where is the middle ground? What do you think we should be talking about at Parents' Evening?
It reminds me of when you write a report at the end of the year and you include what clubs they go to. Yeah, I know. I signed up for them and I picked them up from the club. It's like they go to football club. They do maths every day. Yeah, they do it. I know. That's not very helpful.
They need to work on the curriculum.
I think there's an overlap of people who you're kind of dismissing a bit when we say this, which are the people who don't necessarily, obviously don't understand the subjunctive form and can't help with that attainment, but kind of do like to hear the teacher say, we've been doing this and they're doing it well.
Yeah.
And so you're like, if you go to the doctors, you might not necessarily understand what your doctor's saying in terms of, well, I measured your cortisol levels and that's all good. The fact it's good is enough for you to be like, oh, okay, I don't need to understand all of this, but that's nice to hear. We've been learning a lot about fronted adverbials and expanding our sentences to make them more detailed using conjunctions and leading stuff on. That 10-second sentence for a parent can be enough to be like, oh, I don't understand that, but that's good to hear. You're doing these things that I don't necessarily understand, but my child's getting on well with them.
Yeah, sure.
I think you have a point where if you're sat at parents' evening saying, oh, little Johnny does really struggle with those subordinating conjunctions. So if he could just do a bit of that, that's pointless.
Yeah.
That's pointless. If a doctor said to you, can you just reduce your cortisol? You'd be like, what on earth are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, that's not helpful in itself.
Yeah.
So I think hearing that you're doing well and subject-specific language is fine. I think expecting parents to take something in and do something about it is where we lead to the issues.
There's definitely a line, isn't there? Because there are some things they can do, like with reading. I guess reading is the one I cringe at most, because I think it's quite easy to be like, oh yeah, they just need to work on their inference skills, but their retrieval's really good, and summarizing questions. That's not
a parent has to worry about.
We need to say is, right, for reading, in my opinion, like the perfect parents' evening to me would be a minute, no more, on like the academic stuff of like, they're sort of working at average level in maths. They're expected. They're doing really well. We work, keep working on the times tables because that will help them get a bit better. Maybe practice some fluency at home. Yeah. In reading, they're slightly below average. That's what age expected. So can you just try encourage them a bit more to read? We'll do the same thing at school.
Sure. And we'll do the specific stuff in school.
Yeah. We'll just but not sitting there and being like, so in their test, they're scoring 24 out of 50. Mm-hmm. They needed 3 more marks in that test. So maybe if they could work on sort of those inference skills, they were doing quite well with retrieval, but the inference, I'm like, I don't know. Just say like, okay, this is roughly where they are. They're either doing all right, or they're behind, or they're significantly above in these subjects. If they're significantly behind, that's when I'll start coming in and being like, here's something you can maybe do about it. But obviously, we're the main body of people who are going to do something about that. We are the school.
Yeah, and
it just feels awkward.
It is tricky. I know what you mean, because we're just doing our job and they're going to make progress. I literally answered a question at parents' evening this time. Of a parent said, "What can we do at home?" And it was that generic. It was a nice positive session where we said, getting on really well, doing the right things, it's all good. And they said, what can we do at home? And my answer was essentially nothing. Like my answer was just like, honestly, if your child cracks on doing what they're doing, they're going to make progress. And the reason they're going to make progress is because they're so well-rounded as an individual. That's the number one thing I think that we can do at home with our kids before we send them to school is, if your child's polite, courteous, hardworking, respectful, nice to be around, happy, and that comes from home, and we try and keep that at school, that child almost always will make progress. That child will do, like, no matter where they're at, they might not be a greater depth academically, they might be a bit lower, but if they do all of those things, I can think of so many children over the years who've struggled a bit with their maths or their English or their reading, but my goodness me, across the year they've made so much progress because they're the loveliest kid that I've ever met. And when it comes to parents' evening, and when it comes to what we can do to our next generation, honestly, the number one thing we can do is have well-rounded kids with those personality traits. That is going to have so much more of an impact than me saying to someone, oh, well, you know what? They're a bit disruptive in lessons, actually. But if you could just work on that subjunctive form, that'd be fantastic. To be honest with you, it is the personality and the well-roundedness of the child and the happiness of the child. And if they're having social issues in school, that's something we can step in and fix straight away. It's that's more important to me, because it's my job to do the academic side. We're going to do the academic side. That's the part that we have less control over, that ultimately has the biggest impact on their outcomes.
I agree. I think that's fantastic. And just for feeling good, I guess. So like one of my last appointments of parents' evenings, this is at like 8:20, I think, at this point where it was at. The dad came in of this kid, and this kid in my class, I'm thinking, she is the classic, like, if you had a class of 32 of this child, your job would be a dream. Like, she's so lovely and just gets on with everything, like academically just completely fine in honestly all areas, like just easy going. And dad came in, and this was refreshing to my ears, because I was sort of thinking, this is how I think, and I wish everyone was like this. he sat down and he was like, just so you know, and he did swear a little bit, but I won't swear on the podcast. He was like, I don't give a monkeys, I'll replace the word. Yeah. I don't really give a monkeys about the sort of maths and English. Like, I actually don't really care at all. He was like, the only thing I care about is if my child's happy, how she's getting on, if she's polite. Basically, everything you just said there, this parent came in and said, just so you know, and he had the gumph to say that. I reckon a lot of parents think it, but they don't want to rude, like, professional conversation. He was just a bit more like outgoing. Yeah, I don't care about any of that stuff, so please don't waste my time with it. Can you just tell me how she is as a human being? And basically, because I know she'll be learning if she's happy at school. And I was like, I literally said, well, that's refreshing to my ears. I said, okay, cool. Let's scrap these notes then. I was like, just so you know, she's expected across the board, pushing greater depth in every subject. Yeah. So there you go. What else do you need to know about that? I could sit here and read you a bunch of notes that we've written about the specific areas that she's quite good at and the areas that she's not good at, which funnily enough are the ones we haven't taught yet. But I won't. And we just had a 5-minute conversation about how nice his child was. Yeah. And like very specific situations in school where she's been kind, where she's been generous, where she's like stayed level-headed in like a challenging situation. Mm-hmm. Then we talked about her social side of her life. And we really went in depth into like her friendships and how she feels at home, about some conflict that she'd have with a friend that I didn't know about. And I was like, oh my God, like this is the conversation that I think everyone wants to have. Yeah. And it becomes then more of a conversation and less of a lecture. Yeah. So parents' consultation evenings to me are the best when you are learning things about the child from the parent and the parent are learning things about their child from you. Yep. And you come together to be molding and helping the children as much as they can. When it comes to academics, that's one-sided. That's really one-sided. That's me lecturing to you what we're doing and how you can help. That has its place, but it's not particularly helpful in this aspect. Yeah. Do you know where that would be helpful? When I'm talking to my partner teacher or SLT. That's when we can talk academics and how useful this is and how we can move on. And the children are really struggling with spelling, so let's do something about spelling. That's a conversation. Yeah. At parents' evening, a conversation is the child holistically. Yeah. That's how we're going to get the most progress and the best impact on that child and make them happier and better. And it gives them a chance in that moment then, if there are challenges for that child, let's say they are significantly behind in something, whether it's social or academic, is a chance for them then to say, okay, cool. So what are we all doing about it? Exactly. What are you doing about it as a school? Okay, well, actually, we've got them in these 3 different intervention groups that are really targeted for this thing. And we're really trying, and we've seen a bit of progress there. That's what we've done. I'm not going to sit here and tell you all of the intricate things we've done in that intervention. I'm just going to tell you that we're providing support for your child. What are you doing at home? Oh, you're doing this. You're doing extra reading with them. Brilliant. We've seen the impact of that in school. 100%. This is working well, this relationship, because we are raising this child almost like a village. It takes a village. Together. It is, because we're spending 8 hours a day, well, not that man, 6 hours a day, whatever, with your child, like 5 days a week. Yeah. And they're important to us and we care about them. Yeah. And it makes such an impact that, again, we'll finish off this chat, but on this kind of holistic view, the nicest comments we ever get from parents evening, for me as a teacher personally, are where parents say something along the lines of, wow, you really know my child. Yeah. I've done my job so much. That makes me warm inside. It's like, you really understand my child. And you've ever had it before where you say something like, and I knew he'd think that was unfair. And I spoke to him about it, and the parent goes, oh yeah, he would. And the parents are like, yeah, you know how he feels. That is how he feels. You get this person. And they're the powerful moments. And there's where we have an impact and a move, I think. Yeah. The attainment, the chats like that, I think you're right. They go, do you know what? They go in reports. Yeah. That's what reports are for, in my opinion. Like when it comes to like academic stuff, just bang it in a report. Honestly, I don't want to sit there and awkwardly talk about it for 5 minutes. And you know you've done well, not just when parents are complimentary about how well you know them. It's when they get a little Malteser bunny. It's happened to me. And they put it down on the desk at the end of it and say, thank you for teaching my child. And I'm like, straight in the mouth at 7:30 You didn't say anything because you had a mouthful. That Malteser bunny. So that was a nice treat on the parents' evening this week. Oh man. Anyway, but yeah, it's lovely. And I think 10 years in the job has helped me mold that mindset. If anyone's listening now going, oh, I really don't ever think that way or do that, you're at a different point in your career maybe, because there was definitely a point where I'd sit there and be like, I'm going to write really detailed notes about where everyone is. I've just found over the years, and maybe having Rory has helped in the last couple of years, where I think to myself, if I went to my son's parents' evening, what would I truly care about? Maybe it's a privileged position to know that I can help with academic stuff anyway. Sure, you know what I mean? Maybe that is true. Because you're so smart. But thank you. But I think I would trust the school to be covering that. I want to know, is he happy? Yeah. I want my kid to be happy. Yeah. And if he's happy and courteous and kind, do you know what will happen? He'll sit well in his lessons, listen and learn. Yeah, he'll learn anyway. It's what will happen as a result. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. I love that. I love that chat. Let's go on to now the main bulk of our episode then, because it's something else we're really passionate about, and we do hope this comes through, is reducing workload for teachers to make people's lives better. Okay.
Yeah.
And a big point there, we can look back at what we just said. Don't spend half an hour writing really detailed academic notes for parents' evening. Just know your kids really well. There you go. That saved you a bit of time. That can be your 0.5 on this list, because we've got 6 things you can action straight away to reduce your workload. You can do it immediately. Let's dive into it, Hayden. All right, let's dive straight into 6 things we think you could do straight away, because a big part of what we're doing on this podcast is, calling out the crap and the rubbish and the stuff we think is nonsense, but also trying to give actual actionable things that you can do as well. So let's start straight away with number 1. Use your professional judgment to question and push back policy and ideas in your school. This is something you can do straight away. It's not necessarily something that's easy, depending on your environment that you're in or your personality. You could be someone who wants to avoid what you see as conflict, and that is completely perfectly acceptable. But what you have to understand is that unless people in your school at the level of being teachers and class teachers, etc., are willing to do this with leadership, then you will be in a school that constantly feels like they can roll out new things again and again and take advantage of your time as a teacher.
Well, reflect on your school right now, because I've been in a few schools that I can think differently about, right? Are you in the kind of school where they do roll out a lot of new things that will impact your workload, where all of the teachers moan behind the SLT's backs and moan to each other and then don't do anything? Or are you in a school where people are actioning what we're saying here, which is where at least one teacher or a couple of teachers, maybe they're the one that it's like, oh, they're the one that's going to say something. There's always seems to be one teacher, isn't there?
I think there's 2 in our school.
Yeah, we've got a few in our school. I think we're quite a brazen school. It's good,
but it's not brazen. It's not. I want to push back on this again. It winds me up because I know there'll be some people who see me as, oh, that brash guy chatting back. Yeah, because I'm a professional. And these policy rollouts are directly impacting me and the time I get to spend with my family.
Yeah.
So yes, of course I'm going to talk about it. It's not me being bullshit.
How many times have you been fired because you had an opinion?
Exactly.
How many times?
Well, never, because luckily as well, though, I do work in a school where that I can say these kinds of things, and it can be a professional discussion. It can be a hard discussion.
And here's the fun thing: so do you. You all work in a school where you're allowed to do that.
Yeah,
you're not going to get fired for having an opinion. Genuinely, you're allowed to push back. Like you were saying to me earlier about, we need to get out of the mindset of the head teacher is our head teacher from when we were at school.
I think that's a problem. I'm going to talk about this very quickly because I think that's a problem. I think that's a mindset we have in school. Because we are teachers and we're in this kind of pyramid of power, if you want to call it that way, and we are so ingrained in traditionally thinking, no, what the teacher says goes, and that's important for many reasons.
Yeah.
We then apply that to ourselves sometimes, and we think, well, what the boss says goes. It's like, yeah, do you know what? It does. I'm not here to argue that.
Yeah.
I have a boss and I'm asked to do things that I don't always want to do or think is helpful, but I will do them because they've justified it in a certain way. And you don't always have to agree. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, though, when something is objectively mad and is going to impact your work-life balance in a contract you've got because you're a professional employee, just don't put yourself in the same grounds as the kids listening to an adult telling them what to do.
Yeah.
You are in a completely different ground. You are a professional. You are a teacher. So when policy is implemented that directly affects how you teach your class and the planning you have to put in place and the work you have to do, that you as a professional deem not reasonable or not having an impact enough to justify the time you put in, it is completely acceptable for you and your staff to get together and say, no, we disagree.
Professionally. That's the only thing I'll add to that. It is completely acceptable for you to professionally kick back and kick up a bit of a fuss and say, no, this is not acceptable. What's not acceptable is what happens a lot, which is you and your staff, I don't know, then you go and moan behind their back and then unprofessionally bring it up. And I don't know, I can't think of a really good example now of where it becomes unprofessional, but like there are certain channels, there's certain ways you should talk to someone professionally. At the end of the day, like then they're not your parent. Your head teacher isn't your parent. They're not when you were a kid and had a head teacher and you felt like they told you off like they were like your parent. That's not what they are. They're just another human being at the kind of, that they are working a job like you are. They're just doing a different managerial role. Have a professional discourse with them. They're not going to take you very seriously if you go there being like effing and blinded and being and like threatening things. But you can absolutely, you're well within your rights to say, oh, me and the staff have had a conversation. We don't think this is appropriate. Can we have another meeting about this soon and really discuss it? Like, there's ways to do it. But if you don't do it at all and we just moan behind the scenes and then we go onto TikTok and Instagram and then come onto like our Instagram reels and be like, and start venting on us instead, like, oh, you're rude. No, just don't be part of the problem. Just use your professional judgment, call out things that are terrible, have that professional discourse with your SLT, and something might change.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be probably surprised how often how receptive people sometimes are to this kind of thing. Yeah. Because a lot of the time when policy is being rolled out, it is usually with the best of intentions. It is usually because they think it will have an impact on the children. But what I'm saying here is you have a voice. You have a professional voice that you need to use and take advantage of, because otherwise you're just another cog in the machine that you think is broken, doing another thing that takes up more of your time that you don't think is having an impact on the kids because you feel like you have to. Do you know what will eventually happen? You'll burn out and you'll leave the profession.
Yeah.
And there have been plenty of times where in the last few years, I've become much more confident to do this, but I've also been learning how to do it. There have been times where I've brought something up in a way that I regret.
Yeah.
So for example, there might have been some time before in the past where we've been in the staff meeting, something was said that I might think that was rude or wrong or a bad representation of something. And instead of me kind of, professionally going away and being like, I wasn't quite happy with this because I think it represented that badly, or I think it shows us in this light that I think is wrong, and we've been asked to do this and I think that's just not a good use of our time, I just bit back immediately and I was like, oh, actually, no, that's not very fair though, is it? That's not right. You're wrong.
Shouting out in the stuff.
Yeah, you're wrong because of that. And, and I've said sorry for it. I'm really sorry. I don't mean to be rude at all, because I don't. But I just think it's important that we raise these things. And again, even in that situation where I felt maybe I went too far because I do overthink things, there were loads of staff who said, thank you for saying that, because it was exactly what I was thinking.
We were all thinking the same thing. Yeah. It's a good point.
That's it, really. That's just number one is be confident in your professional judgment. Your opinion that something is wrong or won't work is genuinely as valuable, if not more valuable, than someone who's outside of the classroom trying to implement things again and again.
Yeah, because you're in the classroom.
Understand that. Yeah, back yourself.
Good point, Dylan. So number two, something I think this is like really sort of easy to action like right now if you wanted to, is I did this years ago, by the way. So sit down and list, maybe just start of this week, the last week you've been in school, right? List all of the aspects of your role, all the jobs you had to do, all of the things and tasks and
Would whatever. You put writing the list on the list?
Writing the list is number one on the list. Yep. You write the list, but then number two is thinking about writing the list. No, I'm joking. So you go through, you literally just write down, like from the basics of like teaching maths all the way down to maybe even at the weekend, I had to replan a lesson, right? Just list every single thing you had to do and then prioritize them, right? In terms of what you feel, because remember you're a professional, like you don't have to, no one else needs to matter about this. What you feel like was the most important job to the least important job. Now, that's quite a vague description. I'll leave you to decide what you think most important is, because that could be what's important to you at the moment might be the outcomes academically of the children. What's important to you might be the holistic side of the children. There's loads of social things going on, whatever. What's important to you might literally just be what you think has the most impact to the least impact in terms of a task.
That's what I'd go for. I'd be thinking, what impact does this have on the children against the time it takes me to do that job?
Yeah.
So that would be something I'd be thinking, okay, that's really important. And it might well be that even if a job takes 5 minutes, it might have zero impact on the children. That would go straight away.
Yeah, it'd go right to the bottom of your list. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you'd be thinking about that ratio, which is a really good way of doing it. But either way, right, whatever you've done, right, you've made your list of all these million things. Firstly, you realize how much stuff you're doing, which might even just be enough for you to be like, crikey, I do so much stuff in a week, how many tasks. Take the bottom 10% and honestly, scrap it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Literally don't do it.
So do you mean don't do it, that's it forever? Or are you saying don't do it and see?
Okay, it's a middle ground. You can interpret it how you want. I kind of wanted to be vague just
I'm wondering what you mean.
Just to be a bit out there. But what I mean is, don't do it could mean don't do it this week. Maybe rethink it for next week. Put it on your list for next week because it's clearly not that important. It might even be don't do it at all and see if it makes any impact or if anyone even notices.
Right.
The amount of things in my job, this can make me sound like a terrible teacher because people value...
Well, only on the traditional
Yeah, I was going to say people value teachers based on how many tasks they do, apparently.
Yes.
But honestly, I think it took me about 1 year of teaching to realize that there were so many parts of my job that were literally tick box exercises, and even the people telling you to do them didn't even care about them.
Oh yeah,
didn't even care about them. And I very quickly clocked on that there were big aspects of my job that I could just not take seriously in any way at all. It made absolutely no impact to me, the kids, or the people that were implementing the policy, and yet everyone will take it seriously.
Are you brave enough to give me an example?
Yeah, all right then. Okay, ready? Literally year 2 of teaching, after spending a whole year where I was told that for every single subject, so for maths, English, core subjects, and all the foundation subjects, I had to fill in this really quite intricate like objective assessment sheet where it was like, have the kids met this thing in this geography lesson? Have they not met this thing in this RE lesson, whatever? And you had to really assess it. And then I finished it after the first year, realized it didn't inform anything or anyone, impact the planning, impact the children, or impact my teaching. And I was like, whoa, that was a pointless waste of my time. We all decided we need to like fill in these assessments for some reason. And then honestly, for the next 9 years of my career, I've never once, I'm admitting this is going to, isn't he bad? I have never once filled in an assessment like that. Yeah. This is different to like tests and other things that inform my reports and the gap analysis and things I do. This is different, right? These are the assessments where it's like, oh yeah, you've got to fill in that grid for rivers, for history on that topic you did, and don't forget to do it also for geography for that term, so we know where the kids were. Yeah. What's that for? Oh, so you can tell the next teacher when they come around to doing geography, so they can fill the gaps. Are they going to? No. Are they going to? Is it going to change their planning? Well, no, they're using planning from last year. Right. Oh, but they should be adapting it. Are they though? No. We're all just pretending. Yeah. We're all just pretending. It's like, okay, do I need to fill these in seriously? Yes, very seriously. Will you know if I haven't? No. All these kids, all fine in this one because it doesn't impact or inform anything.
You're at the point now in your career where you can genuinely look back and be like, well, my kids made good progress. Yeah. And I've never taken this seriously. Yeah, seriously.
I'm 10 years in and I'm like, oh my God. And there's no one out there that is making different. Honestly, it's ridiculous. So there are things like that in my career where that would be at the bottom of my list. If I had to order my list now, one of the things on there might be, I've got to do the end of term. I've got to fill in my assessments or whatever, or collate them or whatever it is, collate my assessments. So that goes at the bottom of my list. And not doing it to me is, I'm not going to do it seriously because it's completely pointless, especially when you're in year 6. Because do you know where it goes? Literally nowhere. Because there's not even a next year group up that I can even talk to and be like, these kids didn't do very well in history.
I think that's a huge part of primary school where we convince ourselves something's happening or is important, but it doesn't. Yeah. Like the like you're saying there, for example, if we do a history unit on the Romans in year 3, right? Yeah. And I take those children up and I've been teaching them Anglo-Saxons, okay? Pure honesty here, have not remotely looked at where they were for their year 3 unit on Romans. Because it's not going to change what I'm teaching the children. It's not going to change how I adapt on the spot and help them. It doesn't matter to me whether the children fully understood a very specific point in one lesson last year. Yeah. Because you know what? If they didn't quite understand the idea of society when it was in the context of the Romans compared to the Bronze Age, which they did in year 3. Do you know what's fantastic about what we're doing this year? We're already covering society anyway. We're already going to look at the difference between what the Roman life when they left and the Anglo-Saxons took over and how it almost seemed to have gone backwards. Yeah. We're going to talk about that again to the entire class, whether or not they were deemed to be understanding that societal change last year or not. It is genuinely pointless. But again, there'll still be people listening to us say this going, we must assess everything all the time. No, we don't have to.
I think everyone really deep down knows it's a farce. And the problem is, I don't even blame SLT for this. No. I genuinely don't. I blame Ofsted. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, someone said to me, it's like, yeah, cool. I also think it's pointless. But Ofsted literally say we have to do it. So if they come in and we're not doing it, they can very rightfully say, we told you to do this thing, you're not doing it, requires improvement. Yeah. 100%. Honestly. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's all just agree then to not take it that seriously. Because none of us are going to use it in our daily practice. None of us are going to check on it. Yeah. It doesn't impact anything. Yeah. We know Ofsted are wrong. They're literally wrong because they don't work in schools.
Well, they're driving up standards, mate.
Driving up standards. Yeah, we've got to assess all the humanities. That can we? That's one of those. Anyway, going back to the original point is just prioritize everything. I've gone off on a massive tangent there. Completely exposed.
I'm glad I asked that question.
Completely exposed myself, and probably honestly, half of you have also realized in your career that there are some things that are pointless, and you just do them. You tick a box. They don't really mean anything. You haven't done them to the degree that they're supposed to be done because they're pointless.
That's why we did this.
And there's loads of things that do that, which is why number 2 is to make this list, prioritize things, realize that the bottom 10% are probably things that honestly you didn't need to spend your weekend doing. You didn't need to stay till 5:30 instead of 5 last week every day doing that thing because it was honestly utterly pointless. So just either don't do it or find a way to do it.
Hayden doesn't even teach history. Like it's just completely pointless.
Teaching history, this is pointless, guys. We're gonna do some more maths.
History's already happened.
Maths is the only subject I love.
Right, moving on. Number 3. Use old planning. Do you know what? I can already sense the kind of person listening to this who might be like, this is a horrendous list.
What terrible practice.
What awful practitioners. Do you not care about the kids? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Obviously I do, but I don't need to do new slides every year to care about my children. Do you know what I did? I planned my lessons really well the first time round, right? And I've been in year 4 now for 4 years. Do you know what hasn't changed? How to add mixed numbers and a fraction together.
Yeah.
Do you know what hasn't changed? The representation that I've planned. Do you know what hasn't changed? The thing the kids need to learn at the end of year 4 because the curriculum stayed the same.
Do you know what has changed though? Your ability to adapt on the spot.
100%.
If you need to.
Yeah. And I do it all the time. What I don't need to do, right, is so people, the pushback on this might be, you can't just use old planning because kids are different. Okay? My pushback would be, kids are different and I can just use the same planning.
Yeah.
Because there's not only one way to adapt your teaching.
Yeah.
There's not only one way, which is to change your slides to adapt. Because you know what I could do? I could look at my class and be like, my class are quite good at this actually.
Yeah.
I could probably sit there, look at this old planning and maybe add some extra bits in or get rid of some stuff that's kind of going over old things that I don't need anymore. I could sit there and do that for 45 minutes, an hour, right? Or I could use those slides and go, ooh, next, don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So that is the same thing.
Yeah.
And one of them requires me to sit down and replan stuff for hours in my own time and have less time with my son. And the other thing requires me to use my professional judgment to go on the spot. Actually, no, we're going to go straight here.
Oh, to do the thing you're paid for and not good at.
It,
right,
yeah.
I'm with you now.
You. This is what winds me up so much sometimes about this job, which is I'm paid as a teacher to that's what I'm paid for. That's why I'm paid quite well. That's why I'm a professional. Because I have the ability to, on the spot, realize or know something and change and adapt it. That is the teacher standards we talk about that are so important.
Yeah.
What is not showing that off is my ability to spend 2 hours doing something at the weekend to change it like that. That is not what I'm paid to do. Earlier in my career, maybe that was the right thing for me to do because I'm still learning.
Yeah. Let me clarify something because I could feel someone misunderstanding something. Right. I want to clarify this. You say use old planning. Let's say though, next year you got, let's say at the moment you're teaching a lower ability set, and then the next year you're teaching a higher ability set in that same subject. Are you still saying, yep, use the exact same planning?
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. I absolutely right. What I'm saying is when the objective and the generic outcomes of your class and the way they are the same, reuse stuff. But what I'm also saying is if you live in a school, I do live in a school. If you work in a school with the right culture and outlook on this kind of thing, then if you move classes or whatever to a different year group even, or a different type of set or group of children, one of two things can happen. You will replan stuff, but you know what? Your objectives are probably still the same. We're talking about English and maths. You might look at the structure and expand it and find some more resources for your children or plan some more slides in.
Yeah.
And even you might sometimes plan from scratch.
Well, I've found when I've changed like sort of learning groups, so I've taught children. I've had a set before who are our lowest 12 achievers, and my job was to really help these kids. Like just make progress basically at their level, right? And then the next year, I've taken the top 32.
You can't compare that.
So honestly, I've had to complete like zero of my planning in the one year was applicable to the next one because everything was different. But what I could do, and this is where a really good school can come in place, is I could use the planning though of the teacher that was in that set the year before me.
Yeah.
Like and not all of it. I replanned bits of it because. For various reasons, you know, some of it was just personal. Some of it was because, I feel like these kids are a bit different to what you planned. I'm trying it a bit different.
Or you as a teacher might not necessarily think that's not my style.
That's not my style. And that's up to you at that point. But I could still use it. It was there as a basis. It wasn't there's a shame, I think, in some schools of, using someone else's planning. No, you should be planning it from scratch. It's your set now. No, just use it. It's there. But like the thought experiment for me is this, right? Teaching has happened for a very, very, very long time. And the curriculum also hasn't changed in quite a long time. So if we think about the last
10 years.
10 years, right? The curriculum's changed. It's not true, right, that every single year since 2014, all teachers' planning has got better consistently I can't speak. Cumulatively.
You're right.
I'm all right now.
Your talking's definitely not got better.
I was trying to say cumulatively.
Are you teaching English?
Cumulatively.
You teaching English?
No, I don't teach. I told you, Dylan. I only teach maths.
I have to replan how to pronounce words.
Yeah,
that might be good.
But it's not true, is it? That like because
it's not improved.
It's not improved cumulatively, right? Because if it was like that, it doesn't make sense. Of course, some planning 10 years ago was honestly probably better than some of the planning you made this year.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be replanned, but we did it anyway because we have this culture, a toxic culture of like, unless you're spending the weekend planning, you know, what good are you doing for your students? It's not true. So where you can use old planning, don't reinvent the wheel, I guess is the point here. Where you can use old planning, and there's a lot more situations where you can use old planning than maybe you think. Use old planning, tweak it, or don't do anything to it if it's appropriate. Adapt on the spot if you can. If you look at it and think, I can just tweak that in the moment, do that then.
Yeah, and I think that's what people conflate. They conflate the idea that if you're not using your own new planning and you're using someone else's old planning, you're being a lazy teacher who's not adapting to your class. They are different things. I adapt every single day. Do you know what? Even if I plan from scratch, I would argue that it's bad practice to not be adapting on the spot anyway. So that is so separate. True. That is a separate thing. I could have planned from scratch and I'd still be skipping past slides that when I was planning, I thought I'll put this in case and the kids don't need it. And I'm like, right, they don't need this. Skip past. Don't need it. It's a different thing. Do not conflate being a good teacher, adapting stuff on the spot in front of your class to what they need, which is what I'm paid professionally to do, with me spending 4 hours at the weekend planning from scratch. These are not the same thing.
Do you think it's possible that a teacher out there, maybe even us in the past, has planned a new lesson from scratch because they think it's supposed to be done that way and ended up planning a lesson that's worse than the one that already existed?
Yes.
Of course that exists.
Yes.
Of course that's happened.
Yes.
So that just, again, proves this whole point of like, it's not essential to replan.
No, 100%.
Anyway. Point number 4. Hope you're enjoying these points so far, guys. But point number 4 is...
Do you know what they could do if they are? Leave us a review. We were in the middle. Do you know, because it's in the middle of the 7. There are people listening. At the end, it might drop off. Leave us a review wherever you're going. Guys, we're going for over 200 on Spotify. We're nearly there. And on Apple Podcasts, when people actually write reviews, we've had such nice reviews in the last week or two. Please leave us a review wherever you're at. And out of 5 stars, they should probably go... Probably 5, I think. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah. Problem is, Dylan, by doing it in the middle, we've messed up, haven't we? We've messed up because they're listening so intently to this. They're not going to stop and do it. But maybe they will. Maybe this time they'll stop listening for a second and just give us a quick review. That'd be nice. Maybe. Anyway, back to the point. Number 4. Leave a review. This one's really linked to an episode we did recently, but we didn't want to leave it out because it was so important. We did a whole episode talking about it. But it's just stop accepting automatically things that you know, or even just have an opinion on that you think are not acceptable. I think let's shift this from the first point, which was being able to push back on stuff, right? Yeah. Let's shift it to what you're saying. Things you know are wrong. Yeah. Things you know go against what your contract says. Okay. Things you know are actually bad workplace practice. Don't just accept it. So the actionable point then, I guess, really here is know your contract. Yeah. We did a whole episode about knowing your contract, right? Yeah. Know your contract. Know that, we've talked about this, this word, the word reasonable. Yeah. It's like the killer word in the contract of teachers are expected to do a reasonable amount extra outside of school, outside of directed hours to get the job done. It's the killer because some people take it one way, some people take it the other way. But remember, reasonable does go both ways. Reasonable for who? Reasonable for you, reasonable for the SLT because they want to meet certain standards they've set. Like you've got to have that confidence to understand that your contract doesn't mean my head teacher, who is my boss of life, gets to tell me what's reasonable for my life. No. That's not what it means. And do you know what's great? There's literally a paragraph in that contract, if you know it really well, that says those people cannot dictate to you what reasonable is. Yeah. It's not even us just saying, reasonable works both ways, guys. Let's interpret it this way, which is great for us. Read the contract. There is a paragraph that says that SLT, leadership, anyone else cannot tell you what reasonable is and how much work to do and when to do it outside of directed time. It is in writing. I had a really interesting conversation with someone on TikTok. I did a video about this idea of this reasonable part of the contract because I probably fall on the side, and I still do, that I think that ambiguity in that contract is the root cause of so much burnout and teachers leaving the profession. Exploitation, that's the word. And I still think that, but this guy had made what I thought was a really interesting point. I'd like to see what you think about it. And his point was, oh my God, no, we should not get rid of this from the contract. Yeah. The idea that we have this idea of reasonable and this professional judgment comes in is a real positive for the profession because it's a contract. And like you said, it works both ways. So what this does is it actually should be giving the teacher the power to define what reasonable is for them, and the ability, going back to point 1, to push back and say, no, I'm a professional at saying this is not reasonable now. And his idea was, let's not go down the bureaucratic route of putting an X amount of time on it. So we have the 1265 plus additional reasonable. Let's not change it to 1500 because for some staff that might mean they end up doing more work, and they might mean they're ticking some boxes and things like that. And my main criticism is that that's amazing, and I get what you're saying, and we've got the same outcome goal, but that it's already that, and it doesn't happen. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you kind of said my point there. So the key word in everything you said was the word should. Yeah. His use of modal verbs there,
Yeah, the teachers should be using it. Yeah, but they're not.
Yeah, we have to all be on the same page.
I love ideology.
Yeah.
Like I often live in an ideological version of the world in my head, and I strive towards it. You know, when we went on strike, it's because I'm pushing for this ideology, and then nothing happened after. You know, we talked about it afterwards in a different episode. But I really do like ideologies, and I think the sentiment is great. Yeah, like it is potentially a really good thing that it says reasonable in the contract, and therefore we can interpret it, and we have this lower cap, and reasonable extra is kind of what we champion it to be, but we don't.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a pointless point, because do you know what? Is that reasonable? It's been around, like, it's not like it's brand new and we're in the first year and we're finding our feet with it. No, it's been in the contract for decades.
Yeah.
It's been there for a long time, and it doesn't. That's the ideology isn't the reality. The reality is teachers are being massively exploited for this word reasonable, way more proportionally, like disproportionately than the amount of teachers who are managing to, if we did put a cap of 1,500 hours, I don't think I think there's a small percentage of teachers that would negatively be impacted. Like, I was only doing 1,490. Blimey now, blooming heck is what we say as teachers, because we don't swear.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I wouldn't get angry at this person. I think it's a really nice point, but I just think,
completely.
Yeah, the reality kind of speaks for itself, though, doesn't it? Because we should be, but we should have been doing that for the last 15 years, and we haven't. So,
and there's a whole bunch of stuff we won't go into now. We did it previously in different episodes about how knowing your contract can impact your PPA, impact your workplace rights. You know, literally just how many hours you should be doing in a week. Like when it comes to weeks like we've just been through, which have parents' evening. Maybe I've had people who've also had twilights in the same week as parents' evening. Just tot up your hours and know that actually you shouldn't go above a certain amount every week. That is literally your working right. So knowing that, stop accepting things, and this is the actionable thing. If you know your contract, you can literally in black and white send an email, snip something in, tag your union rep, and bring this up.
Yeah,
this is not acceptable because our contract says this. I've tagged my union rep. No, it doesn't have to be personal. Crack on, but we're not doing it. Let's get on to number 5. Go on, Hayden.
Go on, number 5. Oh, me again. Look at that. Distinguishing between what's nice for the kids, like things that you do that are nice. Well, that's nice, isn't it? And actually impactful. So, you just have this split in your head of tasks.
What do you mean though? Because nice is like, bigging them up a bit. Well done, mate. Are we saying things? I've got in my head straight away, clarify for me or not. I'm thinking that you mean things like writing in the book next to a smiley. Wow, what a lovely paragraph you've written, Johnny. That kind of thing for every child every single day is nice, but it's not necessarily having an impact. And as teachers, we might think, but it's lovely. It's part of my job. You're saying, listen, just do it.
Literally that sort of thing. Okay. And even that, someone could argue, no, it is having an impact because it's a bit positive on their mind. There's always an argument for everything. I think it's very hard to define precisely like zeros and ones. This is only nice. This is only impactful. But there is a scale there where you can probably determine something as like, we're just doing this because we think it's nice, but it's not really having an impact. And if that thing is then adding loads of workload, you should probably think about cutting that thing in half or even scrapping it altogether. Like there's a nice actionable thing here of start thinking about everything you do as, is this impactful for the children? Or am I doing it because it looks good? Is it an optic? Is it nice? Is it because, I haven't written in the... If your thought train to writing something in the book is, I haven't written in that book in a certain amount of time, so I better write in that book today. If that's the reason you're writing in the book, you're doing it because you think it's nice.
Sure.
You're not doing it because you think it's impactful, because if you thought it's impactful, you would have done it automatically.
Sure.
Because you're a
that's
teacher.
Such a good point.
You do that already, right? And I've culled that sort of stuff completely from my life. Like I really, if you look at my books, if I write something in their book, it's because I think it's going to have an impact. I honestly almost never write in their books now, like acknowledgement stuff. Sometimes you'll see in my book, though, hang on, because sometimes you will see in my book, well done, you did a really good bit here, because you know why? Because that child, I know it will have an impact on them because they've got a really low self-esteem.
So you don't acknowledge your kids ever? You're horrible.
Yeah, never in the hour that I teach them in that one lesson.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, like I acknowledge them all the time, and I acknowledge them even after the lesson. I'll say, look for all your work last night and it was fantastic. Boom, done. Look at that. I just saved an hour because everyone's immediately got the same feedback. It doesn't make a difference. But for that one kid, I did write a really nice comment in them because I know they've been working really hard recently, and that's going to have an impact. For this kid though, I didn't write that. I didn't write anything at all. And this other child, they got something wrong, and I wrote a little note there to help them because I think it was a really easy misconception that I can explain in words. And for this other child, they made a misconception. I don't think it'll be impactful for me to write it in words because it was complex. I'm going to talk to them tomorrow. I'm a teacher. You're teachers as well. You know what's impactful. So basically, the actionable point here, I'm not letting Dylan speak at all. I'm going. The actionable point here is decide in your head everything you do at school from now on. What is just on the side of I'm doing it because it's nice, or I'm doing it because it's an optic and I have to be seen to be doing this thing, but it doesn't have any impact. And what things actually I think are having an impact because I'm a professional teacher. I know what actually has an impact on kids or not. Stop doing the nice things, or just half them. Half them.
Yeah.
and find that you're just cutting back a bit more time. If your policy is every single day you have to write something in the books, honestly, start doing it half as much, and then challenge the policy.
Yeah, but it goes back.
Say, at the end of the year, you can say, "Oh look, guys, really weird. This. I stopped doing this a month ago. I didn't tell any of you, but I stopped doing it a month ago, and I made the exact same progress as everybody else. So maybe we're all just wasting our time doing this, and we could get back some time for us teachers. Yeah, see what they say.
Be the change you want to see. Sometimes I completely agree with you, and don't feel guilty because someone else is doing something. This is what happens with teaching. Last point in this number 5. So often I see someone think, oh, well, that person's doing it. I've got to.
Yeah.
That person's doing it. Oh my gosh, I've got to do it. I feel awful. They're doing it. I've got to do it. That's not a reason to do something.
Yeah.
That is not alone a reason to do something. There have been multiple times where another teacher has done something and I've thought, damn, that's good. I'm going to use that tomorrow. That is amazing. Wow, I can see how that will impact my kids.
Yep.
That's what I thought. There have been multiple other times where someone's gone, oh, I write this thing on the board every day. And I've thought, that's great, but nice. It would not have any impact on my kids, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think, oh gosh, am I not doing the same as everyone? Oh my gosh, I don't spend as long marking as someone else. Doesn't that mean we all have to mark more?
Yeah.
No, do you know what it maybe means? Do you know what potentially it might mean? We all have to mark less. So let's just not jump onto that bandwagon of more is better.
Let's do a couple more examples, because I feel like I did this a lot more when I was a younger teacher, right? I mean, firstly, just your example of like you see other staff doing things. Here's a really good one I've seen loads of times in my career. I've seen teachers like sticking things into children's books because they're like, oh, the children are just messy and I want this in their books really nice and neat. So they stick it all in, like pre-stick it in for them. They might take the books home that evening and like get all this thing prepared. And I'm like, that's nice. I'm just going to give them 3 minutes to stick it in themselves. And if it's slightly messy, I don't really care because it's not actually going to have any impact on anything. It just looks nice. That's one really good example. It's like you wasted an hour, I wasted 0 time, and the outcomes were honestly the same.
And wasted is it's a strong word, because for them they might not care doing that. This is the thing that I really want to push as well, is that I don't care if people do that.
Yeah.
I honestly don't. Like, I personally don't care if that person wants to take it home and stick it in. When I would care is if then there's a book look and like, this person's sheets are really lovely and yours are messy. Can you sort that out, please? Oh, sorry, no. The only reason they do that is because they take it home for an hour, and I'm not going to do that. That's when there's a problem.
Yeah.
That's when it's an issue, when it becomes the bar. And that person taking it home should be the first person to say, oh, no, I just did that because I want to. It's absolutely should not be spending an hour doing that. That's up to you.
Here's another one. Early in my career, probably the first 5 years of my career, every single half term, I'd make sure in my half term break that I would sit down with a document, an Excel sheet. I'd make my classroom in an Excel sheet, and I'd do a seating plan, do a new seating plan. I'd really think it through. I'd even used to attach like some data to it and stuff on what the hell I was doing. Like, oh yeah, these kids are here because they're for this reason. Like, in case anyone ever checks, I've got these children here because they're lower ability. I've got them, put them here. And here's their data point from last term. Now I get a scrap piece of paper on the first day of term if I want to change this. Sometimes I don't want to change it. I'm like, no, you're in a good position. They come in, we changing seats. No, I think you're in a good place to learn. Sit down. Done. Other times I scrap a bit of paper, draw it roughly, map out the classroom. I have a think 5 minutes whilst I sat there in registration maybe, or I'll do it over, the lunchtime or the next day or whatever. And I'll do a seating plan like that. It was nice what I was doing before. Yeah. Didn't have any impact though. I didn't need to do that.
And if it did, it was minimal, not worth your time.
Yeah, exactly. It was too far on the scale towards nice for me to justify doing it. Yeah. And one last thing, displays. Yeah. I used to come in every half term and do displays. Oh my God, what was wrong with me?
Doing?
Honestly,
get a life, mate.
Yeah, literally. I'd
go and touch grass.
Exactly. Honestly. I'd come in the half term, every single half term, and get my new displays ready for the term.
Oh, aren't you
Not
a
single child in my whole career has ever commented on one. Yeah. They don't care. No kids care.
Can I tell you one thing? The only time I've ever seen a display of yours get so much attention and so much love was a whiteboard display where you write a riddle every day.
I wrote a daily riddle.
Nothing to do with actually doing displays coming in for hours and hours. Just a daily riddle, which would have taken you 10 seconds, had 10 times more impact, 100 times more of an impact on your class than any display you've ever done other than that.
Literally.
So there you go. Look, it's not
and
all
even
about
that.
time.
And even that was just nice.
Yeah, it was just nice.
No one needs to do that.
And if you're really under pressure, you can stop doing that. Yeah. But if you want to do it, do it. I might not. It doesn't mean I'm a worse teacher than you. Yeah. It means brilliant. Well done, pal. That's great. You want to do it.
So I'll leave the point on that then. Cut tasks in your head into nice and impactful on a scale. Which ones are the nice side can you maybe stop doing altogether, or at least cut a little bit back to buy back some of your time? You'll be surprised how many things you can do with minimal negative impact at all.
Are you ready for the most controversial point that we're going to do?
Is this number 6?
This is number 6. You, as a teacher, do not have as much impact on the outcomes of these children as you might think you do.
What?
Yeah,
what do you mean, Dylan? You're telling me that my job is pointless?
No, not at all. I'm saying you have an impact,
okay,
but it's not as impactful as you might think. And there are other things that come into play than the quality of your teaching as to the outcomes of the children.
This, I can imagine, would get a lot of people's backs up.
Yeah, because you would take it the wrong way.
Yeah, of course you would. I feel like I take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
What do you mean I don't have as much impact as I think I do?
Yeah.
That's rude.
Yeah, 100%.
What are you saying to me?
What I'm saying is you can have an impact on the outcomes of children.
Okay.
Attainment. I'm talking about attainment.
So I can have an impact.
You can have an impact, but it's small.
Okay.
The outcomes of children and how they do educationally wise is far more correlated to their intelligence.
Yeah.
It's far more correlated to their personal characteristics and their traits.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to have much more of an impact on their outcomes than the teacher in front of them.
Okay. And how are you backing this up?
So I'm backing this up with research. This is from the Cambridge University Press. It's been released by Douglas K. Detterman. You can search this up. And the title is Education and Intelligence. Pity the poor teacher because student characteristics are more significant than teachers or schools. And it could get you back up when you hear that, and I get it. But when you read it, it makes complete sense. So there's a bit of a thought experiment here.
Okay.
Imagine you get 50 classes of children, okay? And in these 50 classes of children, the ability of the children is completely mixed. Okay. There's no streaming whatsoever. There's mixed ability classes, 50 of them, and you have 50 teachers, okay? And they're all various degrees of teaching,
right?
And how competent they are as a teacher. Because whatever metric you want to go by, there are some teachers that are better than others. Okay. That's just
so whatever
true.
it is, we've ranked the teachers from like best teachers to worst teachers. Yeah. It sounds silly, but I get the idea, the principle, right?
So in this first set with the mixed classes, we put the teachers from best teacher making the most impact possible to the lowest teacher making the least impact possible.
Right.
Okay.
And we give them all a class.
We give them all a class that's mixed ability. And what we see is the teachers who are better at making better outcomes do make more progress than the other teachers at the bottom.
Right. So the outcomes of the children in that top class are better than the outcomes of the children with the quote unquote worst teacher.
Exactly. The teacher who isn't as good at getting progress. That's true. That happens. However, what we do then is we take another set of 50 classes with 20 children. But this time, instead of ranking the teachers from their ability, we're now going to stream the children. Okay. So we have 50 classes of 20 children. So that's 1,000 children. Yeah. And we take the top 20 children each time, and they're in the top set. Okay. They're in the top group. Right. Then we take the next 20.
So ranking the kids by their intelligence now.
Exactly that. Okay. We're ranking the children by their characteristics and their intelligence. We see way more of a move regardless of what teachers with each class, because we don't rank the teachers anymore. It's completely random.
Yeah, so the teachers are mixed
now. The teachers are mixed. The best teacher might be with the lowest class, or the middle teacher might be with the best class, or what we say is the worst teacher might be with the third best class. It's completely random.
All the teachers could even be just the same level of
exactly that. Whatever it is. No, with this case, the teachers are different. That's the point. Okay, that is literally the point. Right. Because the ability of the teacher does not have as much of an impact, because what happens is the children at the top make the most progress. Yeah. No matter what teacher they're with.
Right. Okay.
And the point of this experiment is, yes, we have an impact, but by far and away, the biggest impact on a child's ability and outcome and intelligence and growth is themselves. Yeah. It already will be happening because of how they are as a rounded individual.
Can I read the little bit of summary here?
Go for it.
Because I think I get that. That made complete sense to me. I get that, right? So like, I'm going to give you numbers now for the difference, right? So what this study tried to show at least, was that teachers in that first analogy accounted for 1% to 7% of total variance of every level of education. So we're saying like the difference between that bottom, like that worst teacher with a mixed ability class, and that amazing, the best, whatever best means, teacher was like 7%. Was the difference. It accounts for 7% of like the impact we can make on education. Whereas for students, the intelligence, just their intelligence, accounts for 90% of the variance associated with learning gains. So essentially, like it was, like you said, the top ability children made the most progress anyway, regardless of what teacher they had. And what was it you said to me earlier? You've spoken to someone who's essentially told you that in your career, like in other words.
So this again, it's not nice, and people might be thinking, well, yeah, obviously, if children are more intelligent, of course they're going to make more progress. Yeah. Just very quickly before we go on to what I was told, the whole point here is exactly. So when you're plowing loads of extra stuff into and being the best teacher you can be, it does have an impact. But we need to it's not as much as we might think it is. Yeah. So I was told, I remember I had a lesson observation, and this is from SLT a while ago. This has really stuck with me since. And essentially they said, I had a class of 32. And they said, 25 of these children, no matter what you did, would have been absolutely fine this lesson.
Right.
No matter how you taught, no matter what you did, they would have behaved themselves well. Yep. They had the characteristics to listen. they would have made progress.
Do the work.
Because they would have done the work that's in front of them, and they would have got better at science. There's another 10% which could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's down to maybe your ability then to help them and to keep them on task. And he even said this to me. There are 10% who it honestly doesn't matter what you do. They're going to find this really tricky. They're not quite accessing this because they're just at that certain level, or they're so disruptive that they won't do any learning, no matter what kind of thing you do. So his whole point now was, I'm not sure if he was trying to make this point, but it really stuck with me from my point of view was, cool, I have an impact on 10% of these children.
Yeah.
I have an impact in terms of their progress and how much extra things they can learn is quite small and is smaller than most teachers like to hear. And where I can have a big impact on these children is more socially, being a safe space, letting them talk about their feelings, being a part of a room where we can make mistakes, etc. I don't want to diminish all of that because I think it's really important. My point here, number 6, is we don't have as much of an impact as we think we do. So next time you're justifying, oh God, but I just love the kids, so I'm going to spend 8 hours on Sunday replanning this stuff to make it really, really amazing. You're having a 1 to 7% difference. You're having a 1 to 7% difference on their attainment.
Across the year, and that's one lesson.
Exactly.
You're plowing 8 hours into 1 week, and across the whole year, you're having a 1 to 7% variance on their ability. Yeah, it's a really impactful point. And it sounds like, do you know, I don't want anyone to listen to this being like, God, these guys are like buzzkill negative. No. It can sound really negative. Like, what I don't want you to take from this is that we think that therefore you shouldn't do anything.
No, yeah, completely.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying here is, if you want to take back control of your life as a teacher and start getting some of your hours back outside of school, you've done your reasonable hours and more, right? Start looking at some of the tasks you do that you have given significant importance to in your mind, maybe because of your own beliefs or because of the culture of the school that you're in that have really forced you to kind of think this way, and challenge it. Because what we're saying here is, you'll find that if you stopped doing a lot of these things, you might think, oh, that's going to have such a big impact because you've put so much importance on it. And what we're saying is, it probably won't at all. It probably won't have that much impact at all, because teachers, we have a much smaller impact on children's academic success than we think they do. So I'm going to reiterate one other point you said, because I want to be so clear here. No one comes back at us with like saying, well, we think something we don't.
Wait until this is clipped into a 1 minute reel.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Oh, yeah, crikey. No, 10-minute reel. Is that we are talking about academic intelligence. We're talking about that kind of success here. We are not talking about the impact we can have on children holistically, which is what Dylan was talking about, the social stuff. This is a different conversation. We are advocates for school should be a safe space for children to enjoy their life and have fun and become lovely people. That is where I want to be spending my time, having an impact on children. I'm not, however, going to go home on Sunday and change all of my fonts because the school has now decided there's a new font policy. Because it will have, and in this case, I'm being honest, that will have 0% impact on the outcomes of the children, socially or academically. It will have absolutely none. It's not even going to snip into the 1% there. Like, there are some things that are so absurd they don't do anything. But there's other things that I might deem as, do you know what? That probably would have a 1% impact. I reckon I would see a 1% difference if I did this thing. But this thing across the year is going to take me a total of about 80 to 90 hours. If I implemented it. And it's just not worth it. And as a professional, you should be able to say, that's not worth it. 1% difference for 80 hours of my time is not a fair trade on top of the hours I already do. So I'm not going to do it. And you're not a bad teacher for doing that.
And if someone wants to argue that it is, you're a bad teacher, you need to do that. Just ask them why they're not doing 120 hours. Just ask them why they're not doing 160 hours. Oh, you do have a cutoff. Cool. Mine's at a different place. You clearly don't care about the kids. You could do another 10 hours a week. Yeah, I could, but I've got to have my dinner. No, you don't. You could have a little snack whilst you're doing it's absurd, isn't it?
You can always fight back, can't you, with the same argument. It's just push until they realise that there is no line.
To come full circle here while we finish up, I think what this does beautifully is it comes back to our passion that we were saying earlier about Parents' Evening, when we're talking about that holistic view of the child and how that is the most important thing. That is the thing that we see have the biggest impact on attainment, have the biggest impact on all outcomes in school, is how well-rounded we can build this child. And it takes a village to raise a child, and a school's role is in that too. And I think we forget that sometimes. We're so obsessed with data and league tables and attainment. Yes, that's important. But when it comes to a Parents' Evening and you're sat opposite the parents of a child that you're with every single day, I want that child to be polite, kind, well-rounded, happy, safe. And if we can build that together, that is going to have much more of an impact on that child's outcomes, including attainment, than anything else I can do at the weekend on a slide changing a font.
There we go. there we have it. The finale from Dylan. What a lovely point to finish on. And I hope really hope you enjoyed the 6 points, and I hope you've managed to action some of them at least, even straight away. And yeah.
And can I big up everyone who listens to us and understands what we're saying without trying to be malicious? Because it really does make it, because we love the kids, and I love it when people message us and say your passion really shines through about how much you love teaching the children, etc. Yes, that's everything we're saying here. We love the kids, we love our colleagues, we want to help everyone, and this is our goal. So thank you to everyone who listens and says, yeah guys, well done, because that is what we're trying to do. So I appreciate that.
Appreciate you guys. Anyway, until next time.
Bye.